I think I like it. Okay, because has the entire show become me reading Tristan Snell tweets?
Pretty much, yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
I don't care. Yep, I don't care. Okay. Do you know how long I've been waiting to say good morning, Tristan Snell? Welcome to the Tristan Snell Show.
Good morning.
I'm just a big fan of you on Twitter and on TV and all of that stuff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, talk to us, because you have a storied history. You're obviously an MSNBC legal analyst, but you prosecuted Trump University. So the stuff that you've been shouting on Twitter, it's just stuff that anybody from New York has said. This guy has been a crook his whole life.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had more experience with him here than and then the rest of the country got to find out about the Trump crime family. So, the New York AG's office so far is 2 for 2 in bringing cases against the Trumps, with Trump University and then the Trump Foundation case. Now we have the big Trump Organization case that Tish James is bringing here for rampant fraud in the valuation of his properties. And we'll see how that one goes. Tempering everybody's expectations, I don't think the case is going to suddenly, we're not going to see justice tomorrow. I know that's always everybody's frustration, is how slow these things go. But I do actually think that we're going to see that case progress over the course of the next year or so. I actually think it'll eventually settle. I don't think Trump's going to let that go to trial because he might lose everything. I think he's going to end up cutting a very big check to make that case go away, but I guess we'll see what happens.
So where do we even start, right? I mean, literally since we opened the show 2.5 hours ago, there's more stories. But I mean, first of all, let's talk about Trump's lawyers, because you tweeted breaking. Trump lawyer Christina Bobb willing to cooperate with DOJ. When the Washington Post asked about this, she said, "I'm not allowed to talk about it." And you say Bobb would be a major domino involved in the fake electors, Willard War Room, and the Mar-a-Lago docs. So talk to us about that for a bit.
Well, but there's the joke that people have come up with that MAGA actually stands for "Make Attorneys Get Attorneys."
Right.
This is definitely a situation here where a lot of Trump's lawyers, at different points have had to get their own counsel because they've become implicated in the various investigations involving him. A lot of it is, as the Washington Post was reporting yesterday, there's more and more instances that we're finding where Trump is asking these lawyers to do things that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
That are in fact actually criminal or fraudulent themselves. And then they resist, then they potentially pull themselves off or get pushed off of the team. Chris Kice, possibly the same situation there that we're seeing. But to Bob, the fact that she is now, she was one of the main people going out there being kind of one of these, I would call them sort of spokes lawyers. Mm-hmm. Trump is finding people to be his lawyers. There's a certain set of his lawyers that it's clear that they're not really there to be, it's not like they're there to win a case in front of the Supreme Court. They're there to look good on TV. Like, that's what they're there for. Yeah. And, she was one of the main people going out there being a spokes lawyer for him. Yeah. And now it turns out that she's actually, that there are clear signs that she might already be cooperating with DOJ. She knows a lot. She was at the center of a lot of things in the 2020, 2021 time frame. And then, of course, she did sign the affidavit regarding the Mar-a-Lago documents. She has then apparently told people, she was on a show, a conservative show, in which she noted carefully, in a very lawyerly way, that she was not acting as a lawyer for Trump when she signed that affidavit. She was merely acting as a custodian of documents, she claims. That is important, because it signals that she is not going to claim attorney-client privilege over whatever communications were made between the Trump circle and her with regard to those documents at Mar-a-Lago. There's also a thing in attorney-client privilege that I can get to called the crime-fraud exception that we're about to all learn way, way more about. But that also allows for an attorney to basically lay down the burden of keeping attorney-client privilege and to actually be able to testify about things that otherwise might have been privileged.
Yeah. Well, and now we're hearing about this other lawyer, Alex Cannon, refused Trump's request in February to say all the documents were returned because he was not sure the statement was true. I mean, first of all, wouldn't you have to assume it's not true because Trump said it if you're his attorney? Right? I mean,
yeah, well, it's a combo of like, well, I don't know what people think when they're starting to work with him. Like, do they think that somehow they're going to be the one to like bring him to a place of reason? That other people failed at making him a good client, and that they'll succeed where others had failed.
Right.
I don't know. What are they thinking? And then maybe they realize that, oh wait, he is lying all the time. Or did Cannon actually get to a place where he knew for sure that certain things that Trump wanted him to say were in fact not true?
Right. You would think if you were a smart lawyer,
we don't know yet.
You would notice the string of lawyers behind you that are either in jail or disbarred. You would think that might come to your attention if you were going to be his new lawyer. But
it's and I'm sure that this was true in a different realm of his life, but it smacks of like, sort of like a ne'er-do-well kind of bad guy, like dating some new girl, and the girl thinks that she's going to be the one to actually get the guy to settle down.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's what all of these attorneys are doing. It's just like, oh yeah, I see that there's this like wreckage of other lawyers behind me, but I'm going to be different. I'm going to be the one to actually make a good.
He hasn't met me yet. Yeah, that's what
he hasn't met me yet. So he hasn't met me yet. So I'm going to be the lawyer that actually causes him to be a good client. Like, is that what they're thinking? I'm not sure.
Can I just say,
I'm not sure.
You tweeted, turns out Eileen Cannon is the criminal defense lawyer Trump has been looking for. Yeah. I mean, you also said apparently it's now legal to go on TV and social media and say the government planted evidence and that you declassified documents with your mind, and a judge will just accept that as truth without requiring evidence and arguments in court. You just said, way to go, Judge, quote unquote, Cannon. So what's going to happen here? Is he just achieved the delay that he is always looking for? Or what's going to happen with Judge Cannon in the 11th Circuit?
Look, what you can, the first rule of kind of being a defendant, and Trump definitely follows this, but it's true for a lot of cases, is that, you try to delay what you cannot defeat. So at the very least, you're going to try to delay, and just sort of push off the inevitable. Because the longer that you stretch a case out, what you hope is that witnesses, are not as crisp with their memories, that the whole case just fades more into the distance, that something else happens, and that you just eventually get the plaintiff to give up. It's sort of the advanced version of giving somebody the runaround in a customer service setting. So any kind of delay, even if only temporary, is something that he definitely was trying to get, and that he did. It looks like to at least some degree he achieved that. Where is this going to go? I think the 11th Circuit, bit by bit, is going to come in and correct this. I think is where we're probably headed here. It was interesting that the panel, so the way that these things work, is that you end up with, we talk about it being like, oh, the 11th Circuit said. What you actually get most of the time when a circuit court weighs in on something is you get 3 judges chosen at random from the, something like 10 to 15 judges that sit on that circuit, or the 50 if it's the 9th Circuit because it's so big. That 3-judge panel did what's referred to, their opinion a couple weeks ago was done per curiam, which is Latin for by the court. And that means that none of them actually said that this was our opinion alone. When a 3-judge panel issues something per curiam, they're making a statement to say this was so obviously the right path that we are actually saying this unanimously in a unified voice rather than the judges speaking in different voices. So there was not only no dissent, where you had a 2-to-1 split on the panel. They were actually saying, like, no, there is a very clear way that this should go, and it should go this way.
Yeah.
If they are already kind of seeing the case in a certain way, then I do believe we're going. I think that the 11th Circuit is going to box in Judge Cannon / just reverse her more and more. Now, it may be in pieces. We may get a bit of an opinion here and a bit of an opinion there. I think that ultimately Trump is not going to get what he wants out of her, except that, he'll have gotten the delay.
Yeah. Well, Joyce Vance, our friend, said today that if this reporting holds up, that the one line is, Trump packed these boxes himself. She just said, I don't think there's any way the DOJ does not indict him. I know George Conway just said he thinks that he is absolutely going to be prosecuted and convicted. Where are you feeling on the overall scale with all of the recent reporting?
He's going to get indicted. The question is not if, the question is when. Like, we know enough already that the indictment is going to come. It's just that the standard is really, really, really high. If you're bringing this case, you cannot mess it up. So part of the issue with any of these DOJ matters, and by the way, this is also true for January 6th, is that the bar is sky high. So how long is it going to take to actually do all of the legwork? If you're trying to make the case perfect, it just means that the case is going to take a lot longer to bring. And that frustrates the bejesus out of everybody. Yeah. Like, everybody feels it. I talk about this with people on my Twitter feed pretty much all the time. Yeah. And there's also a lot of disillusionment that has crept into all of this, where I think the attitude with anything new coming up in any of these matters, I always get a ton of replies. They're basically like, we'll never see it. I'll believe it when I see it. He's never going to go to justice. This is all a bunch of garbage. It's never going to happen. Fire Merrick Garland. And it's like, I do believe that based on what we know already, there's enough there on the Mar-a-Lago issue to bring an indictment, to bring him to trial. And it really looks for all the world like there's enough there to convict. Because remember, with the Presidential Records Act, the documents don't even need to be classified. Mm-hmm. They just need to be presidential records. Now, the Espionage Act claim that could get brought would be a bigger deal if the documents, in fact, were classified. But it's unclear whether or not that crime would get charged. We don't know yet. But I think that, the short version is yes, but we still don't know when. I'm sure what they're trying to do also is they have another issue here with the national security team with the government of just trying to find out where the rest of these documents are. Right. There have been rumblings that there may still be things at Mar-a-Lago. Right. There have been rumblings that there might be things at Bedminster. People have speculated that there might be things at Trump Tower. The FBI folks have obviously done a very good job of cultivating witnesses to actually unpack what happened to all of these things. There's still a lot that they have to do.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Tristan, wanted to get to this before we go in terms of Mark Meadows. How far under the prison is he going to go? Will he reside, or is he cooperating? The two bombshells today. He appears to have pressured Pence to engage in the scheme to overturn the election. Mark Meadows may have been implicated in the Mar-a-Lago documents case by one of Trump's attorneys. Patrick Philbin, the Trump attorney, falsely told the lawyer for the archives that that he'd only taken non-classified material such as newspaper clippings, and he said he learned that information from Mark Meadows. So he's obviously implicated 6 ways to Sunday. What do you think is happening with him?
Mark Meadows, the thing that's been tweeted a lot of the time with him, not by me but by others, it's definitely the "you in trouble" girl. Like, he is so in this. Like, he was definitely Trump's right hand person with regard to all of this. By the way, just as an aside, real quick, I believe that we are in the early stages of beginning to see a convergence of a bunch of these matters together. I think that part of what was taken to Mar-a-Lago, part of what clearly may have been recovered already from Mar-a-Lago, were in fact documents pertaining to January 6th.
Hey.
The January 6th investigation and the Mar-a-Lago investigation are going to converge. That is part of where this is headed. I think Meadows was involved with everything. Yeah. And I think that he is already cooperating to some degree. We just don't know how much.
Right.
It's clear that he already has been handing things over, but is he actually going to go all in, and actually become a witness for the prosecution in these matters? If he doesn't, he's going to go, and even if he does, he's going to prison. But he will go to prison. He might be in prison for the rest of his life.
Oh, a little thrill up my leg.
Cooperate.
Oh, you give me a thrill up my leg. Now,
Right?
I have to ask you, you got $25 million settlement from Trump University. Did you get to depose him personally?
No, we didn't. We explored the possibility of doing so, and the thought that we had in that matter was that we already had so much good material that we didn't really feel like it was worth it to engage in the food fight that it would have taken to get him to testify. As you saw with Tish James, it took them 6, 7, 8 months of fighting to actually get the Trumps to get deposed, to testify.
Yeah.
And I think that we thought that it wasn't really, we already had enough of a case that it didn't really make sense to bring him in. I wanted to depose him. I was a bit dumb that I didn't get to. I really, really wanted to, but we already had him on a number of key things. He had been deposed. Also, this was key. He had been deposed in the kind of sibling case to ours that was and that became part of the settlement as well, was the private civil class action against Trump University that was brought out in federal district court in San Diego, and they had already managed to depose Trump, and they got some really good testimony out of him. Okay. We felt like we weren't really going to get any. We could have gotten more material out of him, but it was like, we're good.
We went way long.
We were good.
We went way long. I hope you'll come back. I have to say, you were talking about Trump lawyers just looking good on TV. Travis can confirm, I was in love with you long before I saw you on TV.
And she's a lesbian.
I'm a lesbian, and I read your tweets every day on the show, and then I saw you on TV, and I was like, oh my God. Okay. Please come back. We have so much to talk to you about. And
anytime.
Okay.
Anytime.
You heard it. We have it on tape. Thank you, Tristan.
Thanks, Tristan. Thanks so
See you
much.
next time.